and welcome to the Fourth Floor Features podcast, where today we're going to be talking about E3. We have some complicated feelings about this year's presentation, and by we, I mean me, Lucas DeRuyter, and joining me, the voice of not only a generation, but also Broof from our series, The Adventures of Broof, Andrew Clark. How you doing?
Hey guys, this is Andrew. I'm here. Not doing my Broof voice because I'm not a sociopath on my normal everyday to-day life.
Debatable.
But I have a couple of opinions about this year's E3 show, which I think, while stronger than last year, hasn't been as strong as it has been in subsequent, or in its early years. However, I want to start this off with a few games, a few shows that I thought I got pretty hyped about. I know Lucas has a few games that he was pretty excited about. First things first, it was one of the first things they showed at E3 this year. I got super stoked for Battlefront 2. I never played the first Battlefront because the first rebooted Battlefront, because I had the original Battlefront on my PC when I was a little kid, and it just didn't seem to measure up to the nostalgia. But this year, seeing all the stuff for Battlefront 2, I think that that's a game that I can firmly get behind. I think that they're doing a lot of stuff to service the fan base, to sort of fix the things that they had with keeping their users from the last game. And holy hell, did it look pretty. What do you think?
I'm only going to pick it up if you and maybe one or two other people also pick it up.
Well, I'm almost definitely going to pick it up unless something catastrophically goes wrong. I'm going to pick it up.
I never played the original Battlefront. I played Battlefront 2 on PC until just booting up the game caused my family's PC to crash, and then I stopped playing it. But it's going to be the same for me, the same reason you didn't pick up the first one, because it just is not going to be able to beat that nostalgia buff it's gotten from me having played that as a 10-year-old. But what I do know about it is that EA did some kind of shitty stuff with Battlefield 1. All the DLC, you had to pay to get more of it.
That's games for the last 10 years. It is shitty. You're right. It's a business model that
they're not doing that for Battlefield 2, though. They're
right.
Not doing
Battlefront 2.
Oh God, it's already happening.
They're just blending together.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. But gonna wait to get reviews. Gonna wait to hear what their plan is for it, and then if one or two other people who we can play with pick it up, then yes, I'll probably pick it up as well, just to have something to do on a random Wednesday night with my buddies. But a lot of ifs for me right now.
I mean, Battlefield 1 has been my game for the better part of the last year. Like it's been the competitive multiplayer game that I've been good at. And I've been trying to get you to buy that game for a long time so that we can play it together, and you never have. Do you think there's anything in Battlefront that'll make you change your mind, other than instead of horses, you have spaceships?
Well, if anything was going to get me into the online multiplayer shooter, it would be Star Wars.
Yeah.
I guess the one thing they could do for me to change it, that I would be much more likely to buy it. You know the kind of hero system they had in Battlefront 1, where you did really well, and depending on what team you were fighting for, you got to play as Luke Skywalker, or Darth Vader, or Han Solo, or Leia. You see where I'm going with this.
You mean because they were all shitty characters, or...
Two of them were...
Yeah.
Two of these things are not like the other.
I mean... That wasn't a skill-based thing. That was a random pickup on the map. Whereas from what I've gathered, they've got a system called reinforcements, where all the XP that you gain in the match is like a point system, like the game. It's the game within the game, so that during a match, you've got a certain amount of points building up, and you can either spend those right away and like use the points you get from a couple of kills to get a stronger character, like a guy with a jetpack. You could wait a little bit longer, get like a tank or a spaceship, or you could wait till like halfway through the match and play as Darth Maul.
Okay, I would always wait until halfway through the match so I could play as Darth Maul.
I mean, it seems like a strategy thing. Like, oh wow, like we really need something now. We need to get a tank out there. I'm going to spend my money and get like a vehicle, or like I don't know. Like Lucas and I both play Overwatch. You know how you've got the ultimate ready, and you're like, man, do I use this now and kill the one guy in the point, or do I wait for another 10 minutes and kill everyone?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it sounds like they're already making this more a game geared towards which I prefer in a game. I'm not good at first-person shooters at all.
I know you're not.
So the more strategy in a game, which I'm a lot better at that, the more I'll be able to not only play, do well in, and enjoy a game, but just more likely I am to actually buy it. It feels like they're making fundamental changes, so it's geared towards, I guess, outside of that core FPS audience, and I'm grateful for that, and if they succeed in those changes, then yeah, I'll probably pick it up.
Okay. What's the first game that you're super hyped about?
Do you want to talk about Nintendo for the next half an hour?
I mean, I've got Mario Odyssey on my hyped list. I don't even have a Switch or a Wii. So,
it's not coming out on Wii U, just Switch.
Oh, well, I don't have a Switch, so I'm not going to play it. But it looks so just weird and exciting. I thought it was pretty cool.
That opening with the T-Rex and everyone thought it was going to be a Monster Hunter game or some shit, and then it's Mario, and you possess a goddamn Tyrannosaurus I was going to buy it anyway, but now I'm even more ecstatic too. I might actually pre-order this, which I never do unless it's something I am hype about. So and then it's all set to a big band, a big jazz band. I'm hype. I'm hype. And if you're not hype about Mario Odyssey, what childlike wonderment died in you, and what broke you? What broke you, and how can we fix it? What else are you hyped for?
The next couple are going to be not nearly as long. Our Battlefront talk went on for a little bit.
Because that's probably one of the biggest ones that we disagree about.
We seem to agree about a lot of it. Like you're not hyped.
They actually put in $60 plus whatever they finally charge for DLC, but
they're not. Okay. Side note. From what I gathered, they're not going to charge you for DLC, but there will be like in-game purchases, and I'm guessing it's probably going to be something stupid, kind of like I'm guessing they're going to do some sort of like loot box system, something like that, where you can buy a bunch of them. You can either like, work your way up to it and get one every like couple of days of playing the game, or you can just buy 10 of them for $5. I'm guessing it's going to be something like that. Maybe you can buy more battle points or whatever the hell they're going to call it and play as Darth Maul all the time. But
now that we've established that we are thoroughly Star Wars nerds, tell us about your Uncharted boner.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been an Uncharted fan for a long time, ever since I got my PS3, years back. Uncharted 2 was the first game that I bought on it. Or second, whatever. It was like really early in my PlayStation life, and Uncharted 2 to this day is one of my favorite games. Like, when you have a game that's within your top 5, they're all kind of equal. Uncharted 2 is still like one of my favorite games ever, and Uncharted 4 I think is one of the best games on the PS4 so far.
So you are very hyped for kind of, but not really, Uncharted 5?
We don't know if it's a new game, if it's a DLC, if it's an expansion. No, like they've called it a couple of different things, and I'm not really sure what it is. Either way, I'm gonna put my money into it. I don't care.
Even if it's a whole $60 purchase.
If it's a whole $60 purchase, I will buy it.
Okay.
Uncharted 4 has been out for a while. It's been by the time it comes out, it will have been probably a year and a half since Uncharted 4 came out.
For Naughty Dog, that's a reasonable turnover rate between games.
Yeah, for a while they had been doing it every other year, and there was like 5 years in between Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 4 because they were doing The Last of Us and they were doing the Crash Bandicoot reboots.
Well, especially if it's essentially the same engine, essentially the same mechanics. That allows them to really crank it out.
Which allows them, which is why they called it an expansion for a while. Which is, I think that it's the same. I think it's the same everything except for, the campaign. It's like how Call of Duty would just put out a new fucking game every 12 months and talk about how much work they put into it, even though they didn't. But like this shots. I mean, I think that The Lost Legacy is going to be really good. I think it's going to be a good story. I think that. The characters in it are going to be great. I'm super excited. Naughty Dog has proven to me that whatever they put out is going to be worth the money that they charge.
I can appreciate the Uncharted franchise, and the only kind of trepidation I have right now is that when the fourth game is titled A Thief's End, and then a year and a half later you have Uncharted 5 coming out, it raises a couple eyebrows. And I mean, it's a rich enough universe with good enough characters that if they wanted to do a couple of spin-off games, that's totally fine. But they got to be really careful about this because the extended universe stuff, I think, by and large, has a tendency to bring franchises down a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say that if they did this, if they kept doing this, you'd probably be right. I'm not worried about them overextending it because this is just a story of one of the characters from Uncharted 2 and one of the antagonists from Uncharted 4. Like, they're not really, just breaking out the main cast and doing a whole bunch of stuff with them. I think they were both really strong characters in the games, and I'm excited.
If we got this game, one or two more focusing on some other characters, maybe one about Drake's brother, and maybe an origin story for Sully?
Sully.
An origin story for Sully would be
they did a little bit with that in Uncharted 3. They kind of went into Sully's backstory. They didn't give him the origin story, but they did the whole Drake and Sully origin story, how that sort of ended up, which I think is enough.
Oh, okay. And
then Sully's been a big enough character in these games that I don't think they have to do anything more with him.
And then maybe one more where it's Drake's daughter, like 15 years, her started. No,
I'm okay if The Lost Legacy is the end of Uncharted.
Okay.
I'm very okay with that. I'm not going to be super upset if in 3 years they come out with another one. Okay. But I don't think they should do more with it.
The only other must-buy for me that I think I got out of E3 this year, bear in mind Kirby is a very leaning on a yes for me, Nintendo's Kirby, is the Shadow of the Colossus remaster, or remake, not entirely sure how they're branding that. All I know is all of my buddies who are a couple years older than me jerking off to Shadow of the Colossus stuff. I never played the original, never played the HD re-release that it got, and now would be the time for me to jump on this. Shadow of the Colossus, I don't remember this. I've been told the story a bunch of times, but I can never remember it perfectly, but it's been pitched to me as this is the art game before art games started being a thing.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing, that it was a very, professional indie-style game that was very artful and thoughtful. And
even before indie games were a thing, yeah. So I am, it's heating up in here. We have all the windows closed and the fans off for recording. Andrew just took off his shirt. I'm gonna buy that. $60 well spent as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Do you have any more must-buys you want to...
I mean, not must-buys. 2 games that I was very excited about were The Evil Within 2 and Far Cry 5. Because, Far Cry 5, as you guys know, there's going to be Far Cry 5, which is a story of a group of people in an American town that is taken over by fundamentalist, cult people. And it seems like it's going to be a lot of social commentary on kind of the climate of the country over the past year or two. even longer. And I think that's going to be exciting and provocative.
If they do it well,
if they do it
great,
well,
but they don't have the best track record for that.
I mean, I don't. Ubisoft does not. You're right. The Far Cry series does. I mean, Far Cry 3 was a great game. Another one of my top 10 games. Never played Far Cry 4. I heard it was really good. Not quite as good as Far Cry 3. Far Cry Primal was its own thing because you're playing as cavemen. From what I hear, very good game.
Wasn't that a thing earlier in the Far Cry franchise, though?
No.
I could have sworn they went Primal or something totally tangent, kind of similar to that earlier.
There was Far Cry 1, which was a long time ago, before my time. There was a spin-off where it was like some mutant guy fighting monsters.
Okay.
That I don't think they like to talk about that. And then Evil Within 2, I was pretty excited about just because I thought the trailers were very cinematically appealing. I thought they looked really cool, looked really scary. I was a big fan of Resident Evil 7 that came out last year, or earlier this year, I suppose. So I'm starting to get into more horror-type games. And I really like the whole reality-bending, sort of psychological horror. I think that'll turn out well. I don't have anything more to add about games that I'm hyped about.
Okay. I think that's actually a great segue into Bethesda's press conference as a whole, because really they only talked about the Evil Within 2
and Wolfenstein.
Also, remember Skyrim?
Yeah, just yes, it's been 6 or 7 years since Skyrim came out, and they're still trying to milk that. I mean, Fallout 4 VR is a thing, but
a whole nother $60 purchase thing.
Well, plus whatever you got to spend to buy a VR headset if you don't already have it.
Which
I'm not going to. I already played Fallout 4. We played it together. Put at least 100 hours into that game. I'm not about to put another 100 hours into it close up. It seems like all of Bethesda's conference, except for the Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein, were just nostalgia grabs.
Maybe if they had done they shouldn't have done a press conference this year if this is all that they were planning on announcing.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, I am going to quantify. I do appreciate that all of their stuff this is stuff coming out this year.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can respect that. But they really should have done something similar to what Nintendo does with their
Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, there was mini announcements when it's just
they do it a couple
25
times
minutes of just 25 minutes of, hey, here's what we're doing for the next 6 months.
Do with it what you will.
Yeah. I think that would have been more suited for Bethesda. This was just a little, because they have had great conferences the past 2 years, roughly the past 2 years. So maybe they felt obligated. We have to do a conference again. We got to keep this thing rolling. And then no, there wasn't. I don't think they had enough. Very scant.
Almost all of what they did was Elder Scrolls related, without coming out with a new Elder Scrolls 6 game, which was, I know that it's not going to be anytime soon, but I'm still really excited for when the next Elder Scrolls game comes out, because Skyrim is one of the best games of the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. But it's been 6 or 7 years since it came out, and they had, Skyrim Remastered came out last year. They've got Skyrim coming out for the Switch, which is another thing they announced. Some Skyrim card game that all of 20 people in the world play.
No, it's an expansion to the Elder Scrolls card game that desperately wants to be a Hearthstone but isn't.
God, what else was there? Oh, there was the expansion to the Elder Scrolls Online, which is still just a DLC, and I'm sure it's not going to be nearly as good as what those hyped up trailers made it out to be.
And the Creation Club that will apply to Fallout 4 and Skyrim.
Oh yeah, so that's, besides the things we've mentioned, and then Doom VR, which isn't even all VR.
No. VFR.
Oh yeah.
You gotta get that one
fucking
in there, yeah.
Bethesda kind of dropped the ball this year. They had a lot of stuff, but most of it was just hey guys, we still have stuff that is really fun to play. And I'm playing through Skyrim Remastered right now. It is really fun to play. I have made a point to not do any of the stuff that I did in my first playthrough of the game.
And there's still a lot of stuff to do.
I have not been short on any sort of activities. I'm having a great time. But for the love of God, let it die.
And it has been 5, 6, 7 years since Skyrim. It's been coming up on 2 years since Fallout 4. Bethesda, they have a history. Okay, we make an Elder Scrolls game, we make a Fallout game. We make an Elder Scrolls game, we make a Fallout game. It's time for an Elder Scrolls game. And I'm a little, after Breath of the Wild, I'm a little off of the whole open world game concept now a little bit. I can take a break from that. But I could play a fantasy RPG right now, and Elder Scrolls is a really good fantasy RPG.
I mean, I think that you saying that you're off of open world games because you played a really good open world game is kind of dumb. Because that would be like saying, like, I really don't need a fantasy RPG because I just played a fantasy RPG in Breath of the Wild. Or, like, I don't need to play a shooter game because I have, Battlefield 1. I'm good forever.
I mean, if you eat a really good steak, you're, like, kind of in the mood for chicken or fish for a little while afterwards, you know?
Except, like, an open world isn't, like... It's not a genre. It's a setting.
It blurs between the two.
I think a more apt metaphor would be like, I had a really good steak last night, which means I don't want hot food for a little bit.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, because this is a whole other podcast in and of itself. Speaking of weird press conferences, who knew? Shyamalanian twist, Microsoft press conference, actually a car commercial.
It's pronounced car crash. That conference was shit. I'm sorry, we're probably going to lose all of the Microsoft fanboys out there.
We're not Microsoft fanboys at all.
I mean, like, I can respect Microsoft games that come out, but they haven't done anything worth respecting in a while.
So
the Xbox One X, or the Xbox One, kind of failed as a console, and so now they're just trying to make a new version of it instead of just coming out with good games. Because it has the hardware, it has basically the same hardware as a PS4. I know that I'm a PS4 fanboy, but like I'm not going to say that, PS4 hardware is anywhere astronomically better than an Xbox One. But they're like, instead of coming out with good games or marketing or fan service or good programs within the online community, they're just going to make a whole new fucking console and name it the Xbox One X so that it's just called the Xbox in an acronym. And it's so dumb. They didn't even call it the Scorpio. It's been called the Scorpio for the last 18 months. People know what that was. They could have just called it the Scorpio or the Xbox Scorpio.
A part of me just wants it to be the Scorpio so that we can still, so that we're still getting Simpsons memes out of it. That was the most enjoyment I've gotten out of a Microsoft product. But I don't know anybody who is willing to put $500 down for a souped-up Xbox. I don't know anybody who owns a 4K TV to make full use of the souped-up One Xbox. And the fact that they announced a new Porsche during their presentation makes me think that either Microsoft doesn't know their audience super well, or that I don't know Microsoft's audience super well, and that, yeah, the core Microsoft fanboy buyer does have $500 to spend on an Xbox and is in the market for a new Porsche.
Yeah. That marketing campaign's going to all of 5 people. And, I mean, like, I'm not going to let Sony off the hook because the whole PS4... Is it PS4 Pro? Is that what it's
Sadly, it should be the Neo because that's a way better name, but no, PlayStation 4 Pro.
I mean, I also think that was really dumb.
Yeah.
But, I mean, from what I gathered, they're, like, the people making the games are at least trying to, like, make the games up to snuff with that hardware. And there are games coming out for it. And Sony is, like, putting effort into, like, the marketing and stuff. Where Xbox is not any of those things.
Well, not to mention that with the Xbox, everything coming out on Xbox, which I will give them credit for this is a cool thing that they're doing where it has crossplay, is what they're referring it to. Everything that's coming out on the Xbox can also be played...
Xbox One X, you mean?
Any, like, Xbox One, any of the Xbox
So
ones.
the One and the One X?
The One X, and the One S, which is...
What the hell is the One S?
The Slim, essentially, which is another reason why Xbox One X is a terrible name, because it's way too similar to the Xbox One S. But I digress. Everything that's coming out on any of the Xbox Ones, you can also play on PC if you buy it through the Microsoft Store. Which is great. That's how you get people to buy games, and that's how PC gaming has been able to thrive for so long. That's just another reason, though, why nobody's going to buy a Microsoft Xbox One X, because most powerful console ever, maybe only a second-tier gaming PC, though. And the only explanation I can think of for this is that companies make the majority of their money through game sales, not console sales. And if people are buying video games on the Microsoft Store, they're getting all of that or most of that money. Whereas if people go to a GameStop and pick up a game for the Xbox One or Xbox One X, they're only getting maybe half to a third of that money.
So what this marketing thing is that, like, if you buy the game for the Xbox One or One X or One S on the Microsoft Store, you get like a digital download of the game for PC or something like that?
No, it's a separate purchase. You're purchasing this game for PC, or you're purchasing this game for Xbox One.
I thought you said that if you like buy it on Xbox One, you also get a copy for the PC.
The way I believe it works is that any game that is released on the Xbox One can also be played on a Microsoft PC.
Oh, you mean it's like crossplay?
Exactly.
I thought you just meant that you got like a digital download.
No,
you know how like nowadays if you buy a Blu-ray, they also give you a free digital download so that you can watch it on your computer.
That nobody ever uses, but
right,
yes.
Right. So okay, I thought that's what it was, but it's
no,
not.
it is, and it's also kind of cool that you can play a game on your Xbox and somebody on a PC. You two can be playing together. Okay. That's nice. That's a cool thing that Microsoft does. Maybe not the best business decision if they want to move hardware, but I can respect that they're doing a very user-friendly thing.
So, like, people on the Xbox could play Battlegrounds for the next 3 weeks that it's popular?
Yeah. No, that was free to download.
No, it costs money.
They did a free weekend just recently.
I missed that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You get to play You didn't get to play not Overwatch. And actually, the really big thing is that Rocket League now, that's coming out for the Switch, is going to be... You're going to be able to play it on the Switch, on Xbox, on Sony, and on PC. And people playing on Switch, Xbox, and PC can be playing with one another. That's cool. I appreciate that. And that's a great segue into Ubisoft.
I'm still gonna call it Ubisoft. I'm never.
How is the correct pronunciation?
It's Ubisoft.
Okay.
I'm always gonna call it Ubisoft though.
That was going to be a great segue into Nintendo, but Andrew really wants to talk about something from Ubisoft.
Oh no, we can talk about Nintendo.
No. You showed me the thing on your phone. Talk about Ubisoft.
I'm looking at the list that you made. You made this list. I don't have anything to talk about Ubisoft because I don't give a shit about Assassin's Creed.
The best thing I've gotten out of the Assassin's Creed Origins announcement is a meme where it's the Assassin's Creed Origins logo over JoJo's Bizarre Adventure when they're in Egypt. That's the most enjoyment I will get out of that game, and I am fine with that.
Okay, well, crossing Ubisoft off the list now. Let's move on to Nintendo.
Nintendo was the quote-unquote winner for E3. I'm not sure if anybody can really even win E3 anymore, considering it's just these guys had the best commercials for the thing that may or may not actually come out or be released when they say it's going to be released. But
Yeah.
I definitely felt Nintendo won. It was short. It was to the point. It gave fans what they... Wow, that was really unprofessional for you to have your phone go off. I'm sorry.
Lucas is under a lot of stress.
It hurts to be... It's so difficult to be me, you guys. You don't even know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Nintendo was short, to the point, and considering they had a console release only a couple months to go, it did what it needed to do. Super Mario Odyssey, talked about that before. I think it's going to be a must-buy for anybody who has the system, and people who don't have the system, it's going to make them buy it. Kirby and Yoshi both looked great, cute, amazing. I'm probably not going to get Yoshi, maybe going to get Kirby depending on reviews. Blowing the internet's mind with Metroid Prime 4 announcement.
I haven't looked up anything about it because I'm afraid of what I'm going to find on the internet. I know that community is really intense. I was never a Nintendo guy. I mean, I can play, Smash Bros. And Mario Kart with the best of them. Mario Odyssey still got me excited because, I had a Game Boy when I was a little kid.
Right.
I played Super Mario 3 and, seeing how far it's come, it is pretty impressive, but I know this is more your wheelhouse.
I played Metroid Fusions, I think, and a little bit of Prime, which is the only 3D Metroid game I've played, and I'm going to pick up Metroid Prime 4 just because nobody thought this was going to happen. On a lot of people's E3 bingo, this is okay, this is a crackpot dream that it's not going to happen. This is going to be Nintendo announces that Mother 3 is coming to the US. Or, what's another crazy...
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
Half-Life 3 confirmed, yes. This is the Nintendo Half-Life 3 confirmed. And it's confirmed. That's kind of crazy, and just an example of Nintendo finally listening to their fan base. Oh, and then the fact that we're not only getting one Metroid game, we're also getting two Metroid games.
What's the second one?
Metroid Samus Returns. That one comes out for the 3DS. It's a 2D Metroid and a remake of one that came out for, I believe, the original Game Boy.
Okay.
And people are hype, and justifiably.
You say that Nintendo won, which I think as a between the big three with Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, Nintendo probably did win.
Yep.
I know that a lot of individual studios like Ubisoft and EA, they always do their own thing, and so it's kind of debatable on who had the best selection of games. But I think you're probably right over who in the consoles won. I think though that Sony would have won if they would have announced a lot of the stuff that I was really excited for that did not come to E3.
Which is definitely why this E3 overall I'm a lot more meh on than years prior. If only because years prior there was always at least one or two things that just blew my mind, or I can't believe this is happening, or I'm really excited for this eventually coming out. And this year there was really, it was just Metroid Prime. That was the thing that I couldn't believe this is happening, and the rest was just kind of, okay, that's pretty cool, or I'm going to wait until I hear more about this. But what are a couple of the games that you thought, it's weird that they're not talking about this?
Well, I mean, I thought they would have at least mentioned something about The Last of Us 2, considering that they announced it at the Sony conference months ago.
Yep.
The Last of Us is my favorite game. I've talked about games before that have been in my top 5 or top 10. The Last of Us is my overall best game ever. My personal favorite.
It's a lot of people's personal favorite.
It's a great game. The Last of Us 2, I think that Naughty Dog is good at doing sequels. I don't think it's going to be cheap at all. I was just kind of sad to not see anything about it.
I think it might be because they're putting most of their resources into Uncharted.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure that they kind of just announced The Last of Us 2 to try to get filler into the Sony conference before, because we just saw a small cinematic trailer we're not. I don't think we're going to see anything more about it for a while.
I know there's also currently a voice actor strike going on, so maybe that's why
It could be.
Because that would have made sense to me to get just another trailer with maybe a little bit of gameplay or a representation of what gameplay might be with voice acting to establish the story a little bit. If they can't get the voice actors, then yeah, that would probably stymie the whole process. But no, that was a noticeable absence.
Yeah. The other big absence I thought was Death Stranding, which I know that you said that Hideo Kojima said it wasn't going to be there, but he's crazy, so we don't know.
He is a known liar. Like, he will fuck with you just for the sake of it, and I love that about him ever since I was a kid. But any kind of progress update is appreciated, and I'd at least like to know that the gears are still turning for this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The Metal Gear franchise was the kind of franchise where, like, you wouldn't hear about a game for years, and there would be, 7 years in between a game.
Uh-huh.
I really don't want that to happen with this game because it's already been 2 years. Or has it just been a year?
I think maybe closer to a year and a half. And granted, that was Sony announcing during that great video where it's just the guy staring kind of lovingly at Kojima that, yeah, I'm making a game exclusively partnered with Sony.
Yeah.
And the executive just a look on his face.
He was
going to make so much money even if it's terrible.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean, other than that, I think Sony did fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Spider-Man looked good. It looked like it was basically a more fun Arkham game. Open world, sort of New York. A lot of, like, melee combat with, like, some motion.
With Miles Morales at the end of it, which I know people who are more of a fan of Spider-Man than I am, like, really appreciate it. And even I appreciate it a little bit. And if there's maybe like a mentor protege kind of relationship in the game, I'll appreciate that, but we'll see.
Yeah. You said Shadow of the Colossus before. I think that's going to be fine. I'm not hyped about it at all, but
that's fine.
It's not everyone's cup of tea. I know there's a DLC coming out for Horizon Zero Dawn, which I really wish I would have had the time to pick it up because it looked like it was going to be excellent. It came out like the day before, the day after Breath of the Wild, so it was kind of doomed.
It's just kind of superfluous to me, which sucks, but
Great reviews, great mechanics, just a beautiful looking game, really charismatic female lead, that's really cool. Great characters, great story. But I think that's a perfect time to transition into, I think, the dumbest thing that happened with Sony, and I know Lucas feels the same way about Days Gone, because it is a very pretty looking game that seems to have a lot of good mechanics, fits a lot of zombies, even though, there was actually a whole thing where the developers refused to call them zombies, and they'd yell at people that call them
Really?
They really don't want them to be called zombies. And one of the developers, when they were talking in an interview, called them zombies, and then they got laughed at.
Oh no!
It doesn't make sense. I don't know why they wouldn't just call them zombies. But the thing about it is that it's Horizon Zero Dawn without anything that makes Horizon Zero Dawn great. Horizon Zero Dawn had the female lead. It had the great story. It was very original. Robot dinosaurs, which is not a thing that's been in games.
Fucking crazy.
Oh, wow. Your phone's going off. How unprofessional.
At least mine's on vibrate. And ignore. Sorry.
Just, a lot of cool things in Horizon Zero Dawn. A game that was on people's radar.
Mm-hmm.
And Days Gone is just another zombie survival game with guns and a gruff dude with a troubled past who murders the hell out of people for no reason.
What I wrote down in the planning document for this podcast was let me pull it up so I can talk about it verbatim. Days Gone looks like it's going to be the best version of a game that should have come out 5 years ago. And I stand by that because for me, the themes and narrative of a game are equally as important as any kind of setting or gameplay mechanics. And culturally, I think most people have moved past the zombie apocalypse at this point.
Yeah.
If this had hit in 2012, 2010, it would have been hailed as...
It would have been the shit.
It would have been hailed as like one of the greatest games to come out right now. But...
like early Walking Dead, like season 1 or season 3 of The Walking Dead, 4 or 5 years ago. Like when people weren't like just sick of this.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I love me a good zombie game. I think it's a genre in its own, but I think it's been really overplayed.
You got into Attack on Titan because it's essentially just a different spin on the zombie idea.
What if we had zombies but tall?
Giant. And nothing against the people who make the game. I'm sure they put a lot of love and hard work and effort into it.
And it looks like it's going to be a good game. It's just, they could have done something with it to make it a little, like, something more worthwhile. Noteworthy.
I think it's just going to come down to nobody asked for this,
Yeah.
Nobody... This isn't anybody's dream game to come out.
Yeah. There are zombie games coming out that people are still really excited about, and this isn't doing it.
No.
The Last of Us was, if you boil it down, was like a good amount of it was very similar to a zombie game. It was different because it wasn't like it was just zombies,
right?
And they weren't. If you really want to get into the nerdism, they weren't zombies, but. Like, The Last of Us did something with it.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I gathered, looking at the Days Gone presentations and the demos that have come out, this guy, Deacon, the biker guy, who's the main character, is just Joel from The Last of Us, except he has no sort of redeeming qualities, and he's a biker.
My favorite description of the main character that I've seen online is, what if it's Season 1 Dale from The Walking Dead, but Daryl. Fuck, I'm out of that show, man. Wow. It's Season 1 Daryl from The Walking Dead, but 30% more vest. And I mean, Sony isn't the only one to kind of have some missteps with theirs. We've already given Microsoft the jabs about them maybe misunderstanding their audience. Bethesda not really having enough content to merit an event of this size. But yeah, E3 really didn't do anything for me. Ubisoft, the only thing I can talk about from them is the Mario plus Rabbids, which is a game that I'm weirdly conflicted about, in that from a design aspect, it seems like something I would be very interested in, but from an aesthetic aspect, I don't know if I can handle Rabbit Peach taking selfies throughout the entirety of the game. So it's 100% going to come down to a review. To me, if I get a review from a trusted reviewer that's probably buy this game, if you're willing to put money down and maybe even then wait till it's at a 20% discount, then yeah, you'll probably enjoy this. That's 100% what it's going to come down to for me.
I know you're very similar to me on this, but for 3/4 of the games I buy, I'm a complete review whore.
Yep.
I don't like to take a lot of risks because, I'm a college kid. I don't have a lot of just spare capital to toss around.
Exactly.
So having someone that I trust on a review site that seems to be into the same kinds of games that I am talk about the good and bad qualities of a game allows me to assess what I'm willing to take from it. Because no game is perfect, but if a reviewer says all right, this is what's good about it, this is what's bad, I'm going to be able to think to myself, all right, is the bad worth what's going to be in this good, the otherwise good parts of the game? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes I'll get a game even if it gets a bad review, just because no amount of bad review is going to be able to stop me from getting The Last of Us 2.
Exactly.
Or Red Dead Redemption 2, which I also missed at E3. I really thought that was going to be there, since it's coming out early next year.
And I think that really gets to the heart of what, for us at least, makes for really good or great E3. It's that if things are announced, if we can get 3 or 4 game announcements or trailers or something that breaks that review whore habit, that there are 3 or 4 announcements that, okay, take my money, I am down for this, I am invested, I am excited, I am curious, then that 3 or 4 of those makes it a great E3 for me.
Right.
But this one did not have that.
Right, like when Death Stranding was announced, they didn't tell you at all what the game was going to be about. Mm-hmm. They didn't tell you what like genre of game it was going to be. They didn't tell you if you were going to play as naked Norman Reedus. But if someone would have shown me this trailer and said, "Will you pay $60 for this game?" I would have given it to them.
Yep, and the only thing I really got that out of from this E3 was Mario Odyssey and kind of Metroid 4. But Metroid 4 we don't even have a release date for, so just Mario Odyssey then.
Has there... I can only think of one game that I've sold you on that, like, you know, in the past couple of years where they've done an E3 conference that you said that you weren't excited about and you weren't going to get it, but you've changed your mind. That was Fallout 4. I remember when they came out with the trailer for Fallout 4, you were having none of it.
No.
And I was able to convince you later that it was going to be good, and we both loved that game. But can you think of anything that, you know, otherwise either for you or for me, that, you know, something has come out at E3 or, you know, PAX or just even like a Nintendo Direct or a Sony conference that hasn't looked good, that you've been able to change your mind? Because Assassin's Creed Origins doesn't look anything special. It's going to take a lot of work to get me to want to buy that game. Can you think of anything kind of like that?
Going back to Mario Rabbids again, knowing that it is a tactical strategy game.
Jeez.
That's the only... because that is exactly my genre. I'm interested in it, but I don't know if I'll be able to get over the initial kind of the banner advertisement for it, where it's Mario and Rabbids dressed as Mario characters, and they all have guns. That's going to be a hurdle for me. I imagine if I pick it up and it's well executed, I will enjoy it, but that is a big hurdle for me to get past. Any straggling thoughts? This has already gone a bit longer than what I initially intended, but that's probably a good thing.
No, I think this would be a pretty good place to wrap it up. Overall thoughts on E3, I think, would be that it had some good stuff in it, but not a whole lot that was just explosively exciting. It was pretty lackluster. It wasn't the worst conference, but I think it was just kind of like bland. It's kind of meh.
I don't like to give number ratings on anything video game related because it's art, but for what is essentially an entire event around video game commercials, I'm a little more okay giving a rating to, and I'd say compared to the past couple of years, 6 out of 10.
I think that's fair. I am not good enough with navigating the thoughts in my own head to give number ratings to anything, so I'm not even going to try, but I think that's fair. I think just sort of a little bit better than middle of the road, but nothing extraordinary.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening. This has been the Fourth Floor Features podcast. Be sure to check out some of our other content. It's just The Adventures of Broof right now. Well, not just, but...
It's The Adventures of Broof. It's our flagship series, our only series.
Woo! Be sure to check that out. And this has been a hell of a lot of fun for me, so we'll have more podcasts about various topics coming out in the semi-near future. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. And thank you for listening.